All right, welcome to the Action Shooting Show. Um, as always, sponsored by Primer & Co. Today, I have on Logan Dudley, and then it's myself, Ryan Dixon. So, Logan, do you want to give, I guess, just a real quick, maybe background on yourself as far as whatever you want to share with how long you've been doing shooting sports, any of that?
Sure, man. Yeah, I think I started running gun in 17 with Matt Stenett's match at the old Rock Castle. So, and I really didn't do much in the shooting sports prior to that. So, running gun was pretty much my introduction to it. I've kind of branched out and done some local USPSA style matches since then, and um, yeah, a couple other things here and there. But it's basically been running gun for me since then. So.
What, and that's not a bad way to get into it. The people of Run and Gun are really awesome. So if you're going to get into a sport, this is a good one to get into.
Yeah, it's easy to get addicted, but I mean, I came to the sport already kind of excited about shooting and running. So when I found a sport that combined them, it's kind of like, oh, here we go.
Yeah. Well, you're one of the what I call the jackrabbits of this sport. There's a handful of guys that like just really put down blistering run times. And I think it was Brian Ray early on kind of talked. He's like, listen, there's these guys who run really fast and they shoot okay. And once they figure out how to shoot, we're all going to be in trouble. And he's talking about like the people who are like, quite a few of us came from like 3-gun and other stuff. So like we were pretty decent shooters and like fitness was okay, but we weren't runners. And you've
Right.
kind of been one of those in the last couple years who have, and there's a handful of others, but that could run fast. And now you're smoking everyone in the shoot times too. So
Well, I thank you for saying that. I hate to break it to you though. I mean, I'm like locally not maybe quasi competitive locally as far as just running events. So I mean,
oh
there's
yeah, well,
guys
yeah.
out there that are way faster than me, and if they learn how to shoot, we're all in trouble still, myself
That
included.
that's true. And there's only so much that you can focus and, time wise. I mean, the people who are
Right.
really, really fast runners, that's all they do. So, but yeah,
That's
I
true.
mean, yeah. So, well, let's get started here. Today we're going to be talking about the old 18 defense, and it's the Farrell run and gun. Is that the Farrell Ranch? Was that where it was at?
Yeah, Farrell Ranch is the name of the venue, and I mean to call it a venue is. I mean, I don't know that anything was done there prior to John using it for running gun purposes as far as shooting. I think that was a first there, or at least from what I can tell, it was not set up for hosting that kind of thing. So it was just a ranch, and if I understand it right, he finds these people that are willing to host this type of event on their property and leases it or comes to some kind of an agreement to let them have the place for a weekend. But it was an awesome venue, even though it wasn't set up for shooting sports. It's plenty of almost endless opportunities for ranges to shoot, in different directions safely, and so it was a great place to do it.
Yeah, and from what I get, that's kind of the heart of like the early run and gun that started down that way in like Texas and Oklahoma. And like there's just a lot of that big ranches with lots of room. And, they all have, I don't, elevation as far as like you've got different natural hills and mountain, rock outcroppings and stuff. So I guess you have natural berms, you have natural kind of places to, you shoot from here down into a valley or whatever. So, yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of that they can do down there. So as far as the match flavor, as I always kind of call it, what kind of makes that venue, that match, what it was?
Well, first off, I'll say when we're talking about match, there was matches going on Saturday and Sunday, and I actually signed up for both of them. I'm going to go all the way to Texas. I might as well get everything in that they'll give me. so, um, so yeah, my wife and I took a trip and made a kind of vacation around it. And so the Saturday match is their what they call their series event. and that's the longer distance and more shooting stages. It ended up being about 8 miles and 7 shooting stages. And then Sunday is their rivals event, is what they call that. And that was more like 4 miles with 5 shooting stages. And the course overlapped somewhat on the second day. A lot of it was stuff you'd run the day before, but he did change up a lot of the stages to try to keep it a little more fair for people that like me that got to do both events. But I would say is if you're looking for like an overall flavor of what they're trying to do, at least at this event, there's a lot more emphasis. And I'm kind of speaking. I'm thinking some people that are watching this are probably from the north. That's what they would say compared to what you and I and some other people from that area are used to. There's a lot more emphasis on target acquisition than there is on just being able to maneuver and dispatch targets really quickly. You got to be able to find them too at this event, man. That was the biggest challenge for me the whole time I was there, was just being able to see these targets, because there's a lot of hidden targets compared to what we're used to. They blend in with the backdrop intentionally. They're placed underneath shade lines intentionally, under the canopy of a tree. Just a lot of different ways that he forced you into awkward positions to be able to find targets, or suboptimal long-range shooting positions to be able to hit some of them. So I'd say that was the flavor of this event, what he was going for overall.
Awesome. Yeah, and so it kind of reminds me a lot of the, I guess, sniper matches, and especially like the team matches, seem like they have that. You come up in a place and like they don't tell you where it's at. I guess that's a good point. So I've shot pretty much everything east of the West Coast, or east of the Mississippi. Tiger has his match there in Missouri, but the East Coast in general, and even when we get natural terrain stuff, it tends to still be maybe a little more bay. We just, the East Coast doesn't have that like what they have. I mean, you don't find ranches, you don't find big pieces of property the size you do in Texas.
Yeah.
Or the West in general. So all of our stages are more compact, and if we get long range, it's like it's a field. And it's not, I mean, I saw some videos of that where it's just everything's open and expansive, and you got tall waving grass, and people are shooting. Someone had a great video, had little arrows pointing at like where all the targets were, and it was cool. I mean, but yeah, that's a challenge that I know Tiger's last zombie match at Rock Castle, he had a stage that was in woods. I think your furthest shot was only 100 yards, maybe. It wasn't that far, but he had targets hidden in the woods, and that was really challenging for a lot of people. So yeah, that's something that you don't see as much over here. So that's probably an interesting challenge for you.
Yeah, it was different, and I mean, I think I improved on it from one day to the next. So, but it was definitely not something I was ready for going in entirely.
Yeah, and when we had targets over here, it's like I said, a lot of times we're shooting into trees and brush, and so it's definitely different than just a big wide, like finding a target in all of Texas skyline. All right, so we kind of covered each day. Was there only one division then? Do they have anything like that?
I believe the only division breakoff was what they called Warhorse, I think. And I think that was just a 50+ age group kind of thing.
Okay. So no weight divisions, no different
I don't
distances.
think there was anybody weighing in at the end of this one. If there was, I didn't see it. And I was at the start finish line a fair amount, so I thought I would have seen that going on. But
yeah, that makes sense.
One division for everything.
Okay. That's I mean, I've done some of the plate divisions and different, and I know I got a lot of friends that do the weight divisions, but I can see just kind of a do what you want on the match.
Yeah.
So that's simple is sometimes the better way. So I guess real quick, gear wise, you tend to run, I think, pretty light. I think you got pretty light, like rifle or maybe
Yeah,
pistol, and
light and weird. That's my setup. I do things a little different in a couple of regards. I'm one of the few that does the biathlon sling thing. So 2-shouldered biathlon style sling on the back of the rifle. Rifle is I don't know what it weighs at. It's probably a fairly light rifle, but it's got a heavy barrel, big 18-inch white oak armament barrel for longer range matches anyways. I do have another upper that I can switch out for 300 and less matches. But and then I do everything, all my gear is on the belt. So I don't have anything on my, other than that 2-shoulder rifle sling. This is where it's all at for me. So nothing on my chest, nothing on the other parts of my back except for those two shoulder straps for the biathlon sling. And I feel like it lets a lot more heat get off of me, which it was 92 both days for a high, Saturday and Sunday in Texas. Luckily I got to run fairly early both days. So I was out in it Saturday. But yeah, I feel like that setup lets a lot more heat off, makes me pretty maneuverable. It's just been a good setup for me to run that way.
yeah, I mean, I generally haven't been a huge fan of a lot of stuff on my waist, but obviously that works for you. Yeah, it's very personal. So that you felt like that worked out pretty well at this match, the same as anything else.
Yeah, I don't think I had any complaints this time. I don't usually change things unless I have to. Although they have a rule down there, hard holsters only, and I've always had a super cheap soft holster on that belt. It's what I've used since the beginning. It's got a buckle strap that locks it in, and I've been chided for that more than once, but it's been great for me until now. But it was in the rules pre-match. You can't have that. You got to have it. So I had to, and I didn't read the rules until fairly close to the match. So I had to kind of scramble and get that holster in and hooked up. And I had very little time to practice with it at all, but it worked fine. So running the M&P with the optic. Used to have a light on it, but the light won't go in the holster, so that came off for this match. But everything worked fine. I had one little sling problem on a stage when I was transitioning from pistol to rifle, where I got hung up on my water bottle holder, and it was my fault entirely. There's a thing I have to remember to do when I come up to a stage, and I didn't remember to do it, and that's just a mental flaw. But other than that, all the gear worked fine for me. So
awesome. Yeah. So the course, you said there was basically two courses. You had what did it equal? You said 8, so a little over a 10K, and then then almost a little over a 5K the next day.
Yeah. They were both strong. I think that's why he quit calling them 5K and 10K, because he was getting too many complaints for them always being more than that. Actually, the Saturday course, really comparable to Heartbreak. I see, you got your Heartbreak shirt on there. 8 miles, maybe somewhere around 1,000 feet. My Garmin shut off. It had a problem, and I lost part of it, but I would estimate probably close to 1,000 feet of climbing. Really rough terrain, maybe even a little more so than Heartbreak. Just big boulders in your path a lot, and I mean, you could give yourself 1 second to look up and try and find your next trail marker, and then you had to be right back down on the terrain, or you were going to turn an ankle. You had to really watch where each of your landings was coming down, because it was super rough in a lot of places. Loose rock on a lot of the uphills and downhills, so you couldn't really cruise on either one. Kind of backsliding going up, and then just being really safe coming down. But all in all, I would say really comparable to the Heartbreak course in overall difficulty and distance too. So
okay. Yeah, and that's I think on one of the discussion groups we were talking about, like the thing about Heartbreak is like there's hills and stuff, but you're going a lot off path. So you got high grass you're going through, and they're actually, I know going down that hill to kind of the river bottom, there's some of those big rocks, and I think it's like a logging path or whatever. So sounds like a little similar to that. Was some of this on like access roads, or is this just going through just
Very little.
ranch? Just okay, awesome.
There were a couple of gravel kind of roads cut through this pasture land where they would, like you said, access roads. They weren't much, but we didn't spend a ton of time on them. Certainly less than a mile on the Saturday race on those gravel roads. I would say a lot of times he was steering you. We ran inside of like a limestone creek bed for a while. That was really cool. And it was a hard bottom creek bed. You're not like slogging through the mud like we've had to do in other places. It's hard bottom. And then a lot of times he was just steering you through. Sometimes there was a cattle path you were following, and sometimes it was like you could go any number of directions from there, and you just had to keep following the tape wherever he was steering you through it. It wasn't even really a path a lot of times. So there's cactus there and all kinds of rock formations, and it was cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've said it on these shows before. I like the off path, the off course, I can go on a trail anywhere, like to kind of get through woods or, in this case, kind of just heading through parts of the, desert or whatever that, the geography is. I mean, that's fun to me. You get to see things. And so that sounds like an exciting course. I've not had the chance of getting down to Texas or Oklahoma yet. And the match schedule is just not, I don't have that right now, but someday I'd like to be able to get out there and shoot them, because it sounds like they put on some good matches down there.
Yeah, I mean, I had gotten that as by reputation prior to going, and I think from what I posted on Facebook that I would generally agree with that. Like I had a lot of positive things to say about it. And it was definitely a fun match in more ways than one, but I also came away pretty impressed with their system too. So.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So here on the East Coast, to give background, on the East Coast, pretty much all the match directors I know use practice score. So if you've shot competition, USPSA 3-gun, you're probably familiar with practice score. They have a run and gun application, or a module, I guess you'd call it. And it works pretty well. It kind of lends itself to a certain way of doing a match. And on top of that, I haven't talked to anyone about this. I would be safe to assume that a lot of the matches that we do, the way they're run, probably stems from the way that Matt Stennett runs his matches, since he was the one that kind of brought it over here. And I think everyone who has picked up match directing, like Tiger and Alan and Todd and Stewart and like all the Heartbreak guys and the Legion guy, like all those guys shot Matt's match before going on and doing their own. So it's safe to say the way that we do things on the East Coast kind of stems from that. Now, over down in Texas, it's John, right, that runs these?
Yeah. The OED matches are John Turk is at the head of that. Turk.
And so he's created his own application, I guess, mobile app, and his own format that goes with that. So maybe explain kind of what's different.
Well, I should start with a disclaimer that I'm taking whatever I can take from the competitor standpoint. I wasn't familiar with that system going in. I didn't actually use the system from the RO side. But I mean, from my point of view, it seems pretty darn slick. The ROs are equipped with a check-in phone or tablet, and then a scoring phone or tablet. And as soon as you get to a stage, you just holler out your wristband number, which you got at the registration. So, you're trucking up to a stage, and 15 feet away, I would just say 124, and he goes 124, and I'm on wait time. And that it was as simple as that. I don't have to get off of my Garmin workout and start my own wait time or mess with the phone or something. And then once you walk up to the shoot line, your wait time takes you all the way up to the shoot line. And in fact, if I understand it correct, it actually continues while you're shooting. And once you're done shooting the stage, they enter your time, the time that it took you to shoot the stage, and then it takes that time off of your wait time and puts you back on your run clock as soon as they hit enter. So, I mean, I thought it was pretty seamless. Although I've talked to John a little bit since the match and since I put all those posts up, and you know, he wants to downplay it a little bit. He likes to say it's all my ROs. My ROs are great, which is that's not a lie. He does have a really tight group of ROs that travel with him and do a lot of matches for him, so they know the system really well. So it was well run in that regard too, and that probably had a lot to do with the efficiency. His ROs are great.
Yeah, well, and it is the ROs are super important. And you don't want to downplay the match director because they really do set the tone for a whole match. Yeah, when I heard about that, the app sounds really cool. I mean, I like that idea. Wait times are an unfortunate part of run and gun. It would be nice to have matches where you just didn't have it because then it's fair for everybody. But then you would have like you can only have one person on the course at a time. So obviously that's not conducive for making this accessible for everyone. So I like the idea of that app, and the more you automate like that, the easier it is to have things be accurate. Just from putting on even local matches, things get fat fingered, things get flip. Someone flips a number. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can mess up like wait time. And I think we've all ended a match and like seen results and been like, that's not right. Like that, whether it's someone's got a run time that like, is physically impossible for their level of fitness or the exact opposite, they're like, yeah, there's errors. So anything we can weed out is good. And I like the idea of that.
Yeah. I tell you, I left with the impression, I guess what got me thinking about all of the stuff that I posted about originally was there was a couple times where I would come up to a stage with I didn't have a lot of guys in front of me ever, but maybe 3-4 guys in front of me, and I kind of got that feeling that you get when that happens. Like, okay, here we go. Here's the way.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but that's usually kind of excruciating for me to have to sit there and wait through all those guys to shoot. But it felt like that that got churned through a lot quicker at these matches. Like I was up and shooting before I knew it when those happened. And that's what got me to thinking about like, what are the efficiencies going on behind the scenes here? Because this seems to run pretty well, however they're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you said also they do written stage brief. So instead of an RO reading you everything, then you come up and you read it for yourself. And then I guess do you have time to ask questions before the beep if you've got concerns?
You do have that opportunity. I think they would rather you ask those questions to the check-in RO. So usually when you come up to the check-in RO, you're in some position there where you cannot see what's going on at the stage usually. So that's a little different than a lot of matches that we've done also.
Yeah.
They usually have that going on somewhere else. So yeah, you look at your little poster, your little placard, and it's sort of intentionally vague. It gives you the details that you should need to know to get your gear straight for that shooting stage so that you don't get up to the line, have to receive all that verbally, and then start making all your little changes with mags and stuff like that to get everything right where you want it. So all of that is supposed to be done before you get up to the shooting line, which I think is a really great idea. And to allow that all to happen on wait time is not something we're used to either. Usually that's, it's kind of frowned upon. Sometimes it's stated in the rules of matches that you're not supposed to. Sometimes it's sort of left up to the ROs, and that just gives the ROs another thing to have to police too, if that's a rule that people can't be fooling with stuff on wait time. So to go the other direction with it and just say, yeah, fool with whatever you need to fool with, but be ready to shoot when you get up to the line. I thought that was a really reasonable change to do it that way.
Yeah. And that's what, when I was asking a lot of questions about it, and some of the people that do those matches and RO and stuff were kind of filling me in. Because when I first heard about it, my initial concerns with doing all of that on wait time is if people were going to kind of game wait time. So, and you kind of alluded to it. If you come up and you've got a really long wait time behind people, it's usually not an advantage. Like, yeah, your heart rate drops, but then you start getting a little stiff. And especially as runners, like when your heart rate drops too much and you start running again, sometimes you get that like spike, and it's just a real long wait time's not an advantage. On the flip side, coming into a stage and just like hitting it, if your heart rate's still up real high, is sometimes a disadvantage. I've shot matches where I've got no wait time and I come in and they start reading that brief, and if I didn't like walk up to the stage to let my heart rate drop, I was shooting it at 160. So wait time's kind of a mixed thing, and I had concerns like, well, are people going to like sit there and let their heart rate drop a little and kind of game this? But it sounds like in practice that's not an issue. And I do know, with what we do, like most of the matches we shoot, you're not supposed to do anything on wait time. Maybe sip water, but not mess with your gear. You're not supposed to put stuff down, and that happens. And I've been at stages and seen it happen when I'm running the clock, and I don't think it's people abusing the system. I think some people just don't know, and sometimes these rules aren't real well stated before the match. So it does sound like that's a good system, kind of avoids some of that.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. So and I kind of still see how maybe someone could game it, but I guess in practice maybe that's not the case. And I know a couple people said, like, if you're just there kind of dragging heels and stuff like that, like the ROs are gonna speed you along. I mean, even with I'll call it the East Coast system, we're still speeding people along there too. I mean, if someone shows up, you're just not letting them hang out and chill. Like it's even if they're on their run time, like you got to get them going and get them on to the next stage. So,
well, I mean, I think if you had seen how big these stage descriptions were, and like I said, that was intentional, but I mean, it just doesn't take that much time to process what's there in front of you. So it's going to be pretty obvious if you're just trying to drag your rest time out. But I mean, it doesn't take me long to come down off of it when I run into a stage. So I don't really want any more than, I don't know, 45, 60 seconds to sit there and internalize whatever I need to and keep my gear straight. Maybe 90 seconds at the most. I mean, it doesn't take long for it to be too much for me. I know that's probably different for different guys, but I thought it worked real well just to come up. And there were several stages because I ran early. I ran out of run time both day, or out of wait time both days. So like the last probably, I don't remember for sure, 2, maybe even 3 stages on Saturday. I just ran up to him and shot him. But I still had wait time on those stages under this system. It started as soon as I got there, and I looked at the stage description, got it figured out, maybe moved a mag or something like that to get what I wanted to up first, and then away you go. And that's perfect for me. That's enough time for me to come down. So
yeah, I do like that. And I wonder how that would translate, because this is a good example, I guess, or kind of comparison, because East Coast matches and like those Texas matches are a little bit different, with like I think a heartbreak where like pretty much everything happens inside of a bay. Not that they're USPSA stages, but you do have stage descriptions and kind of you'll have barricades, or you'll have like shoot this from here, and maybe a little bit more specific stage briefs, because we have a limited amount of area we can stick targets in, and we want to make it interesting and not if you just put a bunch of targets out there, you really can't hide targets that well in a 50-yard bay or 25-yard bay. So we've got to give you a little bit more stage description. So I'd be curious how that kind of translated over compared to hide and seek target presentation, where go here and find targets and then run to the stake and find the other targets.
And I don't want to make it sound like it was all hide and seek. I think there was more emphasis on that than we're used to, but there was a good variety of stages. Like he had a jungle run type pistol stage where you had a caution tape on one side that was just going zigzagging through the woods, and you had to take targets off as you found them off of the, follow the tape and engage off both sides. So that, and then there were some that were, like you just had a map on the stage description that gave you 4 shoot boxes, and it just had pistol targets kind of off 180, and you did have to find, you didn't know exactly where they were, but you kind of knew it was a fairly scripted stage, more like what we're used to. But so they weren't all hide and seek, but
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, I mean, I know some of the match directors here have talked to John before about, maybe adopting that, because while practice score has been awesome for the shooting sports in general, as a kind of behind the scenes, I guess some of the run and gun app is not as easy as it should be. And there's some bugs in it. I know they had some scoring issues at Heartbreak, and in the past, just things don't add. And even if it worked flawlessly, the whole wait time, like kind of automatically getting entered in, is definitely I mean, wait time is a huge part of the sport, so I could see the benefits of having, something that automatically tracks that.
yeah, yeah.
So, are there anything? I guess is there some other stages maybe you want to talk about, or did you have a favorite one or anything like that?
A favorite one. I hadn't thought about that. You had a lot of so there was 2 pistol only. I'm just talking through Saturday right now. There were 2 pistol only stages. I just kind of described them for you. I think there were 7 total stages, so there would have been 3 transition stages where you used both. No, it was 4. I'm sorry, 4, where you transitioned from one to the other, or sometimes back and forth. I think my best placement was on a stage where you sprinted up I don't know if it was a dry dam or just like a really steep, short, maybe 15 or 20-foot climb up to this ridge, and then you engaged an array that was down below you off of the ridge, and it was pistol and rifle targets in the same array. So you cleared I think you could do it in either order, but I cleared rifle, and then you had to drop mag, clear rifle, and stage it there, do your pistol targets, and then you ran back down the ridge and back up the ridge and started again. You did that 3 times, and you had to engage with a different, it said you had to engage with a different rifle mag each time. So you're dropping your mag, clearing your chamber, and you're leaving all that stuff lay. When you sprint back up there, you pull a new one out and do the same array again. You did that 3 times. So you were huffing by the end of that. It was challenging.
I bet.
Definitely threw more misses out the 3rd time up the dry dam. And then so the one of the stages that got everybody on Saturday, there was an extremely high failure rate. I think it was like 96 or 95% on stage 6, which was the long range stage. You run all the way up to the top of this big giant hill and then shoot long range across a valley, and you're looking off into a sea of brown knee-high prairie grass down below, and then the incline starts to come back up as the range goes out farther, and there starts to be trees dotting up as it's coming up the hill. And down in the tall grass in the intermediate range, I think the targets were probably from 300 to 600 yards, and there was 4 of them. And the first 2 that were in the intermediate range were painted orange in a sea of brown, and the long range ones were painted white under a shade line on a hillside with some kind of white limestone backdrop also. So they were just really hard to find. I actually found the long range ones easier than the short range ones. And I timed out on that stage, which was a huge bummer. But I was by no means the only one that day. I think there was only 4 or 5 guys that cleared it. I hit I hit 3 of the 4 targets with 3 rounds, and I timed out having never seen the 4th target. So that was awful.
Yeah.
It felt terrible.
So, yeah, you know what? So did they do DNFs or was it just by points on that stage? Like if you didn't finish, because
it's a DNA, it's a 180 time for that stage, a DNF.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether you got 3 of them, basically you DNF the same as everyone else.
I believe that's how it works.
Okay.
Which was fortunate because I was actually supposed to clear those 4 targets from 3 positions, and I never made it to positions 2 or 3. So technically, I left not targets standing on that stage.
Yeah. That's one of the things. You know, some matches it's DNF. Some you just get penalties.
Right.
But it sounds like a red dot. The ACOG's probably not your ideal setup for a match, for that match.
When I ran up to that stage, so you had to sprint up part of the hill to get to the shooting positions on Saturday. They took that out on Sunday, but when I got to the top of the hill and where I could actually see what should have been the array, I couldn't see a darn thing with my naked eye. I couldn't see any of the targets at that point. Once I found them, I could kind of see them, but boy, I think it would have been really challenging to hit them with a 1X anything.
Yeah, I in general, it seems like, and I don't know if this is the sport or it's just my perception of it, but things are moving more and like having a low power variable optic really just makes sense. I mean, we're not shooting. If you were in a USPSA base stage, having a red dot may be faster. I've not seen a stage in 3-gun where I thought a red dot would be any faster than an LPVO. But I have seen a lot where having magnification helped. And really the dot on the pistol, I mean, I dotted a pistol for that, for the sport, because I mean, we put targets out a little bit further, a little bit smaller, and not that you can't do it with iron sights, but man, just, hiding that, putting that target right in the center of a big dot or something like that is definitely makes it easier.
I've not been able to actually put to paper a difference between an LPVO at 1X and a holographic red dot.
No,
I've done drills with both, and I can't be faster with the holographic than I can with my normal match rifle on 1X. So
no, I don't think so. I've never seen it myself. Now I don't do a ton of red dot shooting, so I guess someone could argue that maybe if you really, really shot a red dot a lot, you could. But I think it probably depends on your scope too. Your LPVO's reticle or whatever. But
yeah.
I think if you're not using one, unless it's just like pure finance, like all you have is a red dot and that's what you're shooting right now, like go do that. But I don't see spending a bunch of money on a red dot when there's some pretty affordable. I think you use a Strike Eagle, don't you?
I'm on a Strike Eagle, so yeah. I'm cheap optics.
Yeah, and I've used a lot of cheap optics and kind of gotten to buy a little bit better optics just because I've had ability to find good deals on them. But like the Strike Eagle, people use that a ton in 3-gun. Yeah. They either work or they don't. If they lose 0, you send it back and you get a new one. But they tend to, if they come from the factory working,
I use them on my Tippmann 22 that I train with, and I use it on this thing, and I bang them around in both instances, and I've never had a problem. So I did lose a battery ring cover at this last match, but shoot, I called them and with one touch of the keypad to get to the right person, I had the right person, and they were super, super friendly. I thanked them for putting some stuff on the table while I had them on the line. They sent me 2 instead of 1. I had it in 2 days, and they sent me a T-shirt. Yeah. It's like, these guys they're good to work with.
No, Vortex is awesome, and I've known people that have had things go down. I mean, even like the Razors, like they're top of the line. 3-gun. We beat them up, throw them in trash cans, and crap happens because that's not what they're. And they've literally said like, "Hey, this isn't working," but like I've got a big match next weekend, and Vortex is like, all right, take it to this store, and they'll send it back. And once it's at that store, they're mailing them a brand new one, just to make sure that they've got, the optic that they're using in a match and stuff like that. So,
Nice.
so yeah, I mean, they're good people. So, and that's a good illustration. Always thank these people who sponsor these matches, these companies, because most of them do it. Yeah, it's advertising for them, but they're mostly doing it to help the sport out, because the return on investment's usually hard to quantify. I think it's probably there, but I buy stuff that I see at matches more than I would buy. If I got two comparable, if they sponsor a match, I'm gonna buy from them. Yeah. But yeah, it's hard to quantify that return on investment. So definitely let them know.
Yeah, I figure right now they're not throwing stuff on price tables because it's stock they can't get rid of. I mean, I'm pretty sure they can sell this stuff easily. So
exactly.
So it's really cool that they're still putting it on price tables.
Absolutely. Yeah, I picked up some Vortex binos that they had at Heartbreak, and like you said, I mean, they're just stuff's flying off the shelf. So, all right. So, I guess we've kind of talked a lot about what you like. I'm looking through my notes here. Was there anything maybe, say, constructive criticism? Anything you'd change about the match? Anything you'd change about like how you shot it, how you trained? I mean, anything, anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, it was a pretty insanely high failure rate on stages 6 and 7. We didn't talk about 7, but 7 was really tough too. And I think he did take a little bit of criticism after Saturday's match for how freaking hard it was. And on Sunday, what were stages 6 and 7 were still part of Sunday's match. There were two of the ones that did stay. Some of them changed entirely. Some of them, the targets were in different spots, so you didn't really have an advantage. But 6 and 7 were very similar, with the exception that the 2 or 3 targets that guys were having just a terrible time finding on Saturday were moved to places where they were easier to see. So I do think that there was probably some criticism for those, and I would probably be in that camp too. It's not super fun to sit there and listen to the clock tick and just frantically search for something that, as far as you can tell, isn't even there. So it's not my favorite style of shooting that I've done. I kind of like to go fast and shoot a lot of stuff. But
yeah, well, and so we've talked about this with because I run a local match, but as a match director, there's a couple ways. Like sometimes we design stages that we think are very doable and just end up not being, and you have this like real high failure rate. And like, I don't want to say that's a failing on the match director, because you trying things to make interesting and new and challenging, but like sometimes you try something, it doesn't work, and you kind of learn, and it sound, I'm sure, because it sounds like he puts on a great match. He's taking all that feedback, and most match directors are looking at the times and the numbers and seeing, if I see a 90% failure rate, that tells me, all right, either the people shooting my match, wherever the level is, whatever it is, I need to dial things back a little. Sometimes as a match director, you have something that is really, really hard and going to have a high failure rate, and you do it anyways.
Right.
Because for various reasons. I mean, I've done it just to say, hey, this is stuff that everyone needs to be able to do better. So it's humbling.
The flip side of me saying that I didn't like that experience was that I went away. If I went away from the stage extremely angry, and then I kind of ran that off. But later on Saturday night, I was very highly motivated because I had a match the next day I knew was going to include a lot of the same stuff. I was going around asking guys that cleared that stage, what are you doing when you run up to the stage to increase your visibility, to take in more of what's out there as you're coming up to the stage, or there's usually a run up to the shooting position. I was asking everything I could of those guys, like, how are you seeing this? How can I see this better? So I was really highly motivated to get better at that. So I mean, it's good to have guys failing out on stuff that they're not very good at.
Yeah,
I did fix it to some degree. I cleared that stage the next day. Part of it I changed out to clear lenses, and I think that was I usually wear yellow lenses, which in the green/brown backdrops that we're used to, I think I've liked them. But when everything is yellow, including the target, I don't think the yellow lenses were letting a lot show up for me. And then in addition to that, just being more aware on that run up to the shooting position, trying to take in what you can on the way up before you actually try to get down in position. So, I mean, I learned from it, and that's the point of having stages that difficult. So,
Yeah, oh for sure. And you know what, like you finish very high usually at every all the matches I can remember in the recent past, and I tend to do pretty decent. And the thing is, you shoot these sports a while, and it's like this with me 3-gun too. Like you get better and better. That you don't have a lot of those stages where like, so when you don't finish a stage, it is a little jarring because you're just so used to like not just finishing, but like finishing with plenty of time left, and like you get good enough that things go smoothly. So sometimes when it's just a train wreck, and maybe you finish, but it's just a huge train wreck. It is a little bit of uh, a mental jolt that you're not used to. But I think it kind of makes it fun because, like you said, it's motivating.
yeah, yeah.
Because I mean, I timed out at Heartbreak this year on the I'll say long range stage. It was only 300 yards, and there's a couple reasons for that. Normally, I shoot distant rifle, pretty well. I haven't really been practicing. Haven't really, yeah. I mean, I took quite a few takeaways from that, but that's the last stage I haven't finished at a match, and man, I can't remember when. I know, well, Legion, the last stage of the 10K at Legion last year had a lot of people timing out on that one. I mean, good long range shooters timing out on it. So, yeah, that stages like that are not a bad thing in a match. Really humble everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so I guess
Negatives,
what's
though,
that?
off the bat, it was just a really good experience all around. I love the terrain, like we were talking about earlier. That was super fun for me. I really can't think of much in terms of criticism other than those killer stages.
Yeah. So you change your glasses. So after going down there, is there anything you would change with your gear, maybe your training, or if you're going to do another one of those that you try to prepare yourself a little bit better?
I'm gonna try to find a way to work on. So I have a place to shoot long range, which is I'm fortunate to have that for sure, but it's pretty static. It's just basically one half-mile stretch, just flat as can be, and in a really tight, like I can't work a wide angle. So, and there are some places where I think I would be able to do that, and I think I need to train for that. A lot of John's stages had a really wide uh, field of engagement, I guess, where you had to take in a lot of the range and find targets in a huge amount of space, and also to be able to work from mid-range targets, maybe even using a lower zoom on the scope, and then immediately go out to long range, and in some cases back and forth. That's something I need to work on, because on my range, it's basically, I can do different shooting positions, but I'm basically going to 8x and clearing the range at 8x. So it doesn't give me a lot of chance. And it's, like I said, it's in one line straight out. So I'd like to find a way to get a little bit more dynamic intermediate and long range rifle training in. This is probably not going to actually happen until next winter. I don't usually do a lot of that kind of stuff in the summertime, but that's on my list for sure. And then I have had, I think, 5 light strikes on my pistol since the beginning of the year, and that's in the course of a lot of rounds. But it's enough now that I know something needs to be addressed there too. So just from a tooling respect, I need to figure out what's going on with that too.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like good takeaways. Yeah, that I mean, target transitions, and that's where a lot of these. I'll do my pitch for first focal plane scopes because everyone zooms in real high because it's like if you got an 8x and it's second focal plane, that's all your drops, your BDC or whatever works at, and just from shooting matches like Rock Castle, the was it the Thunder Valley, you would have targets out there all along this hillside. It was similar. There's high grass. It was like unmowed field. And yeah, if you tried to zoom in, I mean, I'd see guys 6X, 8X, and they do this where they're shooting and they pop their head up and they see that next target, and then they come over here and then they get down. And it's not always the most efficient. There are places for that. And I think especially like the PRS guys do that when they've got their 5 to 25 scopes and bigger, but at 200 to 600 yards, usually you can crank back to 4, 5X and see everything just well enough to clear it. So yeah, that's a good skill to have and to practice. So
yeah.
and as well as the gear. I mean, I don't think you don't do anything real crazy like the race guns and stuff, but you see people really pushing their guns and doing all the little tweaking and running things to a hair's edge, and that doesn't work for this sport.
My pistol's got an Apex trigger in it, but there again, I've got an M&P on iron sights that's got the stock trigger, the old stock trigger, the Gen 1 stock trigger, and I can't tell you that I'm faster with the Apex, but it sure does feel great for dry fire.
Yeah, I notice triggers dry fire and just messing with them more than I've shot people's guns like in a match or at a range or whatever. They hand it to you and like I put some rounds, like, wow, what'd you think of that trigger? I don't know. It went off when I when I pulled it, like, unless it's like unless it's really, really bad. Yeah, but I at the same time I buy good triggers for my guns because there are times where it's certainly an advantage, at least with rifle.
Well, they just feel so much better. You can tell they feel better. I can't necessarily say it's going to translate to match performance, but it just feels so much better.
Yeah. If it gets you to dry fire or practice, then
right.
I think that's what you've really. I know you've had a couple really good matches. Now you dry fire a good deal, right? Is that what I heard? I think your wife was saying you even wake up early on.
Well, I have
a lot of days.
This winter training season, I have. I started after I got out of the tractor in the fall with the training program, knowing that I was already at that point signed up for this Texas race, and then I had Heartbreak on the list at that point too, and then ended up adding in several. I knew I was going to hit it hard at the beginning of the year, so I started a training program, and I did do an hour in the early morning. She gets up for work early, so I just basically switched over to her schedule and started getting up when she gets up. And it's not fun, but I was the only way that I was actually going to do it. I've tried to dry fire before, like after work in the evenings, and I'll be faithful with it for a little while, and then I just won't do it. I just won't do it in the end. I had to do it first thing in the morning, and actually get up for that reason. And then I actually made a regimen out of it. So I do an hour, 6 days a week in the mornings. So I do pistol 3 days and rifle 3 days. And I did that all the way up to this Texas match. And I'm off of it now. I'm going into my real world season, spring and summer for that kind of stuff for me. But I can do it in the winter, and I did this year. So that's the first time I committed to it that heavily, and the results were awesome. Honestly, I mean, I just shot better in terms of match performance than I ever had before, and it was at a time where I was dealing with some injury stuff on the running side of things, and that encouraged me to recommit to it even more, because I knew, at least for now, I think I used to be able to drop a stage or two and run away from it. I could still place really well and be competitive with that stage drop, but I can't right now. I'm a fast runner right now, but I can't drop a stage and still be competitive at a match. So I knew I was going to have to get my shooting to where I could reliably not drop stages, and in some cases be really top competitive at the stages. So
I mean, look. Yeah, and I think that's awesome. I mean, that's what this sport is about. Because yeah, you beat Brian Ray on quite a few stages at Heartbreak. And for those that aren't familiar, like Brian Ray is a phenomenal shooter, and he's a good runner. He's a tough competitor across the board. But
I think Brian was running heavy at Heartbreak. I'm not sure of that, but
yeah, I beating him even with heavy, it doesn't matter. He's a tough competitor. So yeah, because you won Heartbreak, right? You're in the light division.
Yeah, first place light without the plus stuff. First place light minus is what I say. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get you in light plus next year, right?
I did light plus 2 years ago, the first year that they had it. That was enough. I figured it out then.
Yeah. How did you do then at this match? I don't know if I looked at the results.
At
the Farrel Ranch match.
Yeah, I ended up I took 6th place overall on Saturday and then 3rd overall on Sunday. And it was I think a field of 130 on Saturday and 73 or 4 on Sunday.
Nice. That's very respectable. And then I'm assuming you probably had some faster run times in there.
I was the fastest both days.
Both days? Okay. That's what I thought, because someone got on there trying to talk crap about they getting more people through because Texas competitors were faster. And I was like, well, the guy that won runs all the East Coast events, so I don't know.
Push buttons and get
yes,
guys.
He is.
That's all he's doing.
No, I know. I think, well, no, I mean, but you're right about like Greg. I think at Heartbreak, Greg was like, gosh, less than a minute behind you in the runtime. And
he may have been a little ahead of me.
He was ahead of you, and you were like, maybe, yeah, you guys within a minute of each other.
Yeah, he was very close. He took first run time.
Yeah, there was a handful of people that were like right there. I think Tim Cox was maybe up there.
It was really close at the top. Yeah, it's and that's been a change, I think, from past Heartbreak.
Yeah, because Tim can shoot. I mean, and Greg can shoot. I mean, all three of you guys can really shoot. So, it's getting.
Daniel was up at the top too, in the top 3 or 4 run times there too.
Yes. Oh yeah, I forgot. Yes, Daniel. Yeah, Daniel. I forgot. I shouldn't have forgot about Daniel. Daniel was a little jackrabbit as well.
Yeah, and he's shooting the heck out of it too lately. So yeah.
Yes, he has. No, that's what I love about this sport. So when I got into it, I was slow, and I'm still slow, but my shooting was really good because I shot a ton of 3-gun, and like especially at the time, it didn't take as much to be good at the shooting part. So I have focused really hard over the last like 2 years to really improve my fitness, and so now my run times are getting better. You know, I mean, I cut an hour, and 2021 Heartbreak was way different weather-wise, but like I cut more than an hour off my run time at Heartbreak this year.
From 21 to 2, you were an hour shorter on course.
I think it was an hour shorter on the course. Yeah.
Wow.
And like, and I was training leading up to that, and some of that had weather and like hypothermia, but I've really focused on that, and then the fitness part of it I focused, and like lifting, and so it's like you bring that fitness up. And it's like, okay, well, but now I got to bring my shooting back up, because now I'm almost doing better at the running than I am the shooting, because I've been, you know, it's great. It's you have to focus. It's hard to focus on all of it, and you kind of have to inch each of them up. So you've got me inspired. I've been dry firing a little bit,
nice.
A little bit more than I have. So because that's when I've dry fired in the past, I've gotten better, and it's hard right now. Ammo's expensive, and you know, I don't have a lot of time to just hit the range, even if I could afford it.
My dry fire is cheap though.
Yeah, dry fire is super cheap, and it's actually in a lot of ways it's better than live fire, because
I focus on a lot of the necessary components in dry fire. You can't get all of them, but you can get a lot of them.
No.
So you might as well be really good at the ones that you can do for free.
Yep. Well, and recoil hides a lot of your sins. You know, if you get a bad trigger pull, you don't always see it, and just certain things you don't notice in live fire that with target transitions. I might not see that I'm pulling off that target earlier unless I just happen to, you see the paper or whatever, but dry fire, I think you see a lot of little things like that more because there's no explosion happening up in front of your face.
Right.
Okay. So all right, well we'll wrap this up. I guess is there anything else you wanna say before we wrap this all up?
Oh man, thanks for letting me come chat with you.
Thanks for doing it. I'm gonna try to get more of this. I can't shoot as many matches as if someone would pay for me and fly me and my family, or pay for gas, I'd be shooting all these matches all over this country. But since I'm self-sponsored, like most of the people here, it's I gotta live vicariously through people who shoot these, and I appreciate you talking about it, and I like the different perspective because I love East Coast matches and what we all the people around here are doing, but you get away from it, and I mean just different terrain is awesome. I'm doing a match later this year in Michigan, which doesn't, I mean, it's a 6-hour drive. It doesn't seem that far. There's sand everywhere. I mean, the range is completely sand. Everything is so I'm gonna be changing. It's a ruck and not a run, but I'm gonna be doing some training in sand and maybe some high because just running and moving on that stuff is like it's so much more challenging.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's one of those, you shoot a match, you figure out the terrain or what's different or what challenged you, and you say, well, I bet I could find, some. I'm sure if you look hard enough, you can find some rocky road near you to run down and really.
I'm fortunate to have a pretty good variety of places to run and train, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm confident going into a setting like that with tough footing, but you still had to really, well, I mean, even if you ran that kind of stuff all the time, you had to have your eyes glued on the terrain.
Yeah.
Every foot was coming down.
So this will be, just before we get off, this will be a complete like side. So running, you run shoes, right? Like you run like a low top running shoe?
I run a mid top trail running shoe, Ultra Lone Peak trail runners with a mid top. So
I
run the gaiters over them. So yeah, keep everything out.
Okay. I just wondered because I've got it kind of a bone of contention with there's still a lot of people talk about these like wearing boots and like high things for ankle supports. And I'm kind of the opinion, in my experience, that once you do a lot of training and like you run on trails, and that your ankles get strong enough that you're not really gaining anything from like a leather or higher. So I'm curious what you ran.
I agree with that. I would be completely comfortable on that terrain with a low top trail. I just always gravitated toward the mids because it's a little easier to keep garbage out from falling in. If you wear
that's a good point.
You're probably fine. And it just keeps your ankles from getting tore up in thorns and whatever else that we're going through. So a little more protection. But as far as ankle stability, that's something you can do. You can make gains on that in strength training time, and you really shouldn't be dependent on your footwear for holding your ankles up on trails. That should be something that your body can do, ideally.
Yep, I agree with that. So I'm just curious, and I just actually got a pair of those Ultra Lone Peaks, the low top. So I'm probably gonna pick up the gaiters for those because I think that makes sense in a match to have something like that. Even when I run in a lot of times I run in long pants, but I could see a benefit of having that.
So their own brand gaiters that works with the attachment points on those shoes. So that's definitely the way to go.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, because I got them and I saw a piece of Velcro on the back, and I'm like, what in the world is this like Velcro? And I talked to a guy at my work that does a lot of running. He's like, oh yeah, they got a gaiter. I was like,
yeah,
that's pretty slick.
Don't put them in the washing machine if you get some. I recommend doing that. You gotta wash them if they get dirty.
All right. Well, my shoes stay dirty because where I'm at, it's muddy. It's muddy trails. All I do is trail run. I can't run on the road. it like 2 minutes on a street makes me want to stop. So everything I do is muddy trails just all the time. So
Yeah.
I just leave them dirty. But all right, well, thanks again for coming on. And again, this show is sponsored by Primer & Co. They made this awesome Heartbreak hoodie. You can buy that primerandco.com, as well as all their other 2A accessories. So take a look, and thanks for listening.